God says you should wait. This is why. Bear roots downwards, bear fruit upwards. I remember the earlier days of my walk with God. I had questions, myriads of them. Why do I ever experience delays? Why can't I have it now? I thought faith was instant. I thought if I desired it, my Father would do it for me instantly. This was not far-fetched. In a time where speed and efficiency are prized virtues, the concept of waiting can feel like an unwelcome guest. I had read the story of Elijah who called down fire from heaven, and it would appear like it happened instantly. I was too accustomed to instant responses, fast food meals, and on-demand entertainment, and I wanted to replicate this in my Christian journey. I wanted proofs upon proofs. Have you ever felt like this at any instance in your walk with God? You just want it now, and it has to be now. As I continued to open up my concerns about these seeming delays to God, He began to open my eyes to the important details of faith and receiving from Him, which I was not paying attention to. One of the most priceless insights you will acquire as you deepen your love and understanding of God is how to wait and how to do it God's way. Imagine living in a world where everything happened instantly. There was no room for waiting, and every wish was instantly granted. At first, it would seem alluring, but would it really be satisfying? We risk missing out on the wide variety of experiences that waiting on God offers in this day of immediate satisfaction. At its core, waiting season is a period of life where we find ourselves in a state of anticipation. It's a time when things aren't moving as swiftly as we might like, when our prayers seem to hang in the balance, and when the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty. Biblically, we find numerous references to the idea of waiting on God. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31 famously declares that they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Here, waiting isn't portrayed as an idle pause, but as a source of strength, renewal. It's a season where, like eagles, we soar to new heights and find the endurance to run life's race without growing weary. As a tree needs time to grow strong roots before it can bear fruit, so too do we need these seasons of waiting to establish deep spiritual roots, firm foundations of faith, and the resilience needed to weather life's storms. In many ways, waiting is like the gestation period for a precious seed about to sprout. It's the quiet but essential preparation phase before the grand unveiling of God's plan. Waiting is not just an inconvenience. It is a vital aspect of our spiritual development. These waiting periods are not passive lulls. Rather, they are times of rapid spiritual development, renewal, and preparation. Our lives will change if we embrace these seasons with an open heart and understand the divine purpose hidden inside the waiting. The purpose of waiting. Why must I wait? This is a question that has echoed through the hearts of many believers, just as mine. We all know the feeling, the impatience that can arise when our prayers seem unanswered, our dreams deferred, and our plans delayed. Yet, if we look beyond the surface of our waiting seasons, we'll discover a profound purpose behind them. You see, God is more concerned with who we are becoming than with what we are obtaining. Our Christian journey is first and foremost a call to learn more about a superior nature, God's nature. Therefore, when we accept God's love, God's top concern is the change from our original nature to His very nature. Another essential truth to understand on your Christian journey is that God will first prepare your heart before He prepares your hands. It is understandable why David is referred to as a man after God's own heart, because it was obvious that the man, despite his flaws, had a tender heart for God, a heart that was open to criticism and instruction. In your waiting seasons, God takes time to do you these three favors. First, character building. Us as a skilled artist shapes clay into a beautiful form. God uses waiting to mold us into vessels of honor. Waiting is a divine chisel that sculpts our character. In these seasons, we learn virtues like patience, perseverance, and humility. We become better equipped at heart to handle the blessings and responsibilities God has in store for us. Second, deepening faith. Waiting seasons often test our faith. They challenge us to believe in the unseen and trust in God's timing. We strengthen and purify our faith in the waiting's fire. As we endure the waiting, our faith strengthens through struggle, much like a muscle does. Third, refinement. Waiting refines us. It's like the process of purifying gold. The dross is removed, leaving behind pure, valuable metal. Our waiting seasons can strip away impurities like pride, self-reliance, and selfishness, leaving us with hearts more aligned with God's will. People who underwent remarkable growth and transformation during their waiting seasons are many throughout biblical history. Moses waited in the desert before leading the Israelites. Abraham and Sarah waited for the promised son, and David waited a long time before taking the throne. Each time, waiting wasn't just a setback. It was an essential part of their path that helped them become the role models and faith heroes we now cherish. The idea of waiting on God frequently evokes feelings of irritability and impatience. However, if we change our viewpoint, we can see that waiting also involves experiencing renewal rather than just having to put up with delays. In our fast-paced world, we often forget the value of rest. Waiting on God can be a divine pause, a time to catch our spiritual breath. Just as a weary traveler stops to rest and regain strength, waiting allows us to pause, refresh, and recharge our spiritual batteries. Waiting provides an opportunity for reflection. That's a chance to look back at where we've been and forward to where we're going. This introspection can lead to self-discovery and personal growth. It's a time to seek God's guidance, allowing Him to recalibrate our lives according to His plan. Time of tremendous spiritual growth can occur as you wait. Spiritual renewal frequently comes after waiting, just as winter is followed by spring. We get closer to God as we wait on Him in prayer and meditation. Our spirits and our faith will be revived by this contact. Think of David before he became a mighty king. He spent years hiding in the wilderness, waiting for God's promise to be fulfilled. It was during this time that he wrote many of the Psalms, pouring out his heart to God. Through this waiting and seeking God's presence, David's strength was renewed, and he emerged as a powerful leader. The Bible's account of Hannah serves as an example of how waiting can help you clarify your goals. She prayed ardently for a child while she patiently waited for years. Her desire for a child was changed during this period as her faith deepened. One of Israel's greatest prophets, Samuel, was eventually born to her. These stories remind us that waiting on God is not a passive endeavor, but an active process of seeking Him and resting in His presence, which results in character building, deepening of faith, and refinement. Just as eagles soar after waiting upon the wind currents, we can rise above life's challenges with renewed strength when we wait on the Lord. Waiting on God is an exercise in patience and trust, virtues that are crucial for every believer's journey, which helps us to fully become what He is making out of us. How do we then make sure we do not rob ourselves of this life-transforming process? Patience. When we wait on God, we're essentially waiting for His divine timing, which may not align with our schedules. Patience allows us to persevere without losing heart, understanding that God is working out something both for us and in us. We learn to be patient with God's plan and trust that His timing is perfect. Just as a gardener waits for the right season to harvest, we patiently await God's timing for our lives to yield the best fruit. Trust. Isaiah chapter 49, verse 15 says, "And the Lord answered, how can a woman forget her nursing child? That she should not have compassion on the son of her womb. Yes, they may forget, yet I will not forget you." We need to trust that God knows what is best for us, and indeed this process is making and equipping us for a greater performance in life. You can trust that you are being built through experiences of waiting. Trusting God forces us to relinquish control. It's a humbling experience that reminds us we're not the ones in charge. Trust is about surrendering our desires and plans to God's greater purpose. Trusting God is about believing in His faithfulness. We trust that He is who He says He is and that He will do what He says He will do. It's a firm belief that God's promises are reliable and true. How do you develop patience and trust for this crucial process? First, spend time in prayer and meditation on God's Word. This fosters an environment of trust and patience as you draw closer to Him. Secondly, reflect on past experiences where God came through in His perfect timing. Reminding yourself of His faithfulness can strengthen your trust. You should also maintain an attitude of hope. Hope is the expectation of good things to come. It's the opposite of despair. When we hope in God, we trust that He is working things out for our good. Lean on your Christian community for support. Share your waiting journey with fellow believers who can encourage you and pray with you. Remember that waiting on God is an active, not passive process. It requires patience and trust, ultimately deepening your relationship with Him. The beauty of God's timing. One of the most remarkable aspects of waiting on God is witnessing the beauty of His timing unfold in our lives. It's in these moments that we truly grasp the divine wisdom behind His appointed times. God's timing often surpasses our expectations. We may have our own timelines and desires, but God's plan is always more magnificent. Just as a masterful painter adds brushstrokes to create a masterpiece, God weaves events and people into our lives to craft a beautiful story. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. He endured years of trials, including being sold into slavery and imprisoned. But at the perfect moment, God elevated him to a position of great authority in Egypt. Joseph's waiting allowed him to save countless lives during a severe famine and reconcile with his family. God's timing aligns perfectly with His purpose for our lives. He knows the exact moments when our actions, opportunities, and circumstances will converge to fulfill His plan. Just as a conductor directs each instrument in an orchestra to create harmony, God orchestrates events to bring His purpose to fruition. Consider the life of David. After he was anointed as king, he had to wait many years before assuming the throne. During that time, he honed his skills, faced challenges, and developed the character needed to be a great king. God's timing was not only about placing David on the throne, but also preparing him for the role. Trusting God's timing requires faith in His wisdom. His perspective is eternal, whereas ours is limited, like a bird's eye view of a vast landscape. God sees how every event in our lives connects to His greater purpose. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. They waited decades for the promised son, Isaac. Sarah had even given up hope. But when Isaac was born, it was a testament to God's miraculous timing. He not only fulfilled His promise, but also brought laughter and joy to their lives. We may not be able to discern God's timetable while we're waiting, but as we reflect on our path, we frequently see the multifaceted parts of His design coming together. Similar to a mosaic, each piece may appear unimportant on its own, but when put together, they form a magnificent work of art. Navigating challenges during waiting. While waiting on God, challenges and doubts can often emerge, testing our patience and faith. It's essential to acknowledge these difficulties and have strategies in place to navigate them effectively. There are 3 specific challenges we have to deal with in our waiting season. Impatience, one of the most prevalent difficulties during the waiting period, is impatience. As time goes by, we don't see any change. We could get discouraged. But it's important to keep in mind that God's timing is flawless, and impatience can result in rash choices that thwart His plan. Develop patience through meditation and prayer to overcome impatience. Consider how dependable God has been in the past and have faith that He will keep His promises when the time is right. Take the example of Abraham and Sarah, who in their impatience tried to use Hagar to meet God's promise of a son, but encountered troubles and a delay in God's plan. Doubts and discouragement. When we have to wait for a long time, doubts can start to creep in. We can ponder whether God has forgotten about us or whether His promises will ever be fulfilled. These uncertainties may cause discouragement and faith to wane. Immerse yourself in the value of what He is working out in you and for your good to dispel doubts. Keep in mind the commitments He has made to you, as well as other people's testimonials of His faithfulness. Make sure you're surrounded by a godly group of people who can encourage you. The Israelites in the wilderness experienced doubt and discouragement, yet God's supply of manna and water served as a constant reminder of His faithfulness. Loneliness and isolation. Waiting can be a lonely journey. Check our video on the path to godly obedience is a lonely road to gain more perspective. Others may not understand the depth of your waiting or the challenges it brings. You might feel isolated in your experience. Seek out a community of fellow believers who can walk alongside you in your waiting season. Share your journey with those you trust, and don't hesitate to ask for support and prayer. The Bible tells us that 2 are better than 1, for they can help each other succeed. In navigating challenges during waiting, remember that these seasons are opportunities for growth, faith building, and drawing closer to God. Your waiting is not in vain, and as you overcome challenges with patience and trust, you are being prepared for the fulfillment of God's promises in His perfect timing. Renewed strength and new beginnings. One of the remarkable benefits of waiting on God is how it will always lead to a renewal of strength and usher in new beginnings. As you patiently endure and trust in His process, God often rejuvenates your spirit, equipping you for the fresh journeys and opportunities that lie ahead. Spiritual renewal. Waiting on God often involves spending more time in His presence, seeking His guidance and comfort. This extended communion with God can bring about a deep spiritual renewal. Just as eagles mount up on wings of renewed strength, Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, we too can soar to new heights in our faith. Consider the story of Moses, who spent 40 years in the wilderness before being called to lead the Israelites. During this waiting period, he encountered God through the burning bush, experienced a profound spiritual transformation, and emerged as a great leader. Clarity of purpose. Waiting periods can offer time for reflection and self-discovery, which can help one clarify their goals. When we seek God's direction during these difficult moments, He frequently makes clear His intentions and purposes for our life and gives us the perfect words to use in our prayers. Anna's story illustrates this, as her decision to wait before getting pregnant helped her to realize how her pregnancy related to God's need for a prophet in Israel. New opportunities, the ability to wait on God, can open up new possibilities that are in line with His will. Just as waiting restores our strength, it also puts us in a position to seize new opportunities for development and impact. The time that the Israelites spent waiting in the wilderness was used to be ready to reach the promised land. They endured hardships, but they were also shaped into a people prepared for fresh starts. Transformed character. Waiting seasons often involve challenges and refining processes that mold our character. We emerge from these trials with greater resilience, patience, and empathy. Abraham's waiting for a son stretched his faith, resulting in a transformation that prepared him to become the father of nations. Greater impact. Renewed strength acquired during waiting can propel us toward greater impact in our spheres of influence. Just as God's timing is perfect, His purposes for us extend beyond our personal fulfillment to bless others. The prophet Jeremiah spent years waiting before his prophetic ministry began. His words impacted not only his contemporaries, but continue to inspire countless people today. Trusting God's process. As you navigate waiting seasons, it's vital to trust God's process. His timing is always purposeful, and the renewal of your strength is part of His plan for your life. Remember Isaiah 40:31, which assures you that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength, mount up with wings like eagles, run and not be weary, and walk and not faint. Waiting on God is not a passive experience, but a transformative journey. As your strength is renewed, you step into new beginnings with a clearer sense of purpose, ready for the opportunities and impact that await you. Trusting God's process and perfect timing, you find that waiting leads to greater strength and blessings beyond what you could have imagined. Conclusion. It's a season of renewal, a time when we draw near to God, find clarity of purpose, and discover the beauty of His perfect timing. As we've explored, the waiting season is not merely a pause. It's a process of spiritual growth and transformation. Waiting is not idleness. It's a period of preparation, a refining fire that molds your character. Patience and trust are your companions during these waiting seasons. They sustain you, strengthen you, and align your heart with God's perfect process. Just as His appointed times in the Bible brought forth incredible blessings, you can trust that your waiting seasons are paving the way for something beautiful. Waiting on God often leads to a renewal of strength. This renewal is spiritual, mental, and emotional. It equips you for new beginnings, fresh opportunities, and a deeper walk with God. Remember the common challenges and doubts that can arise during waiting seasons. These challenges can be overcome with faith and patience. And Father, I realize, waiting on you is an integral part of my faith journey. It's where I grow, learn, and ultimately find myself renewed and ready for new beginnings. So I embrace my waiting seasons with patience and trust, knowing that you are at work, renewing my strength for greater purposes beyond my imagination. I embrace the truth that in waiting, I am being prepared for the beautiful plans you have in store for me. So I stand strong, wait patiently, and watch as my appointed time unfolds with breathtaking blessings. In Jesus' name, amen. If you have been blessed by this message, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You are blessed.